Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're back with another quick list video for all of you. We're going to be calling it 5 must-read DC Comics. Now, I'm not entitling this the best DC Comics works of all time. These are just 5 books I think every DC Comics fan should have an opportunity to read at some point. Obviously, this list could have gone on, but I really hope you like the 5 I picked. Before we jump in though, I'd like to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, perhaps some great DC comics, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see anything on their site you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's go ahead and jump into today's DC list. First up on my list today, in no particular order, we have All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Now, this collection has been in print numerous times in different paperbacks, hardcovers. There's even a huge oversized absolute edition, I believe. But what I have here is one of the newer printings of a trade paperback from just a couple years ago. I first read this story, wow, it's been quite a while now, but whenever I think about it, I do think about it fondly. I think that in many ways, this is a quintessential Superman story. I would easily put it in a top 10 Superman story list of all time. It does take place outside of the main canon or continuity for Superman, and it kind of poses what would Superman do as kind of a grand finale. If his clock were ticking, what kind of labors or things would he try to get done on his list? I don't really want to go into too much of a spoiler territory for the sake of this video, but that's about the setup I can share. Each issue he has himself going on all these really fun adventures. Because it's outside of the main continuity, I really feel like the creators were able to flex their creative muscles maybe a bit more, because the stories are definitely striking, interesting, and they take a lot of deep swings with the central cast of characters. With the art of the incredible Frank Quitely over here, I absolutely knew I was going to like this from moment one. I know not everybody loves Quitely's style, but I've always been a huge fan, and this is some of my favorite I've ever seen him pen. And as a longer-time Grant Morrison fan, I will say, for those that might be trepidatious, this is a very accessible Morrison work. Morrison is often known for heady, cerebral storytelling, and while we do have layers of that here, again, I find this to be really accessible to a general audience who want to break in and read just a great Superman story. Can you start with All-Star Superman if you've never read a Superman story? I maybe would point you other places first. However, I think if you were set to give this a try, I certainly don't think it would be a bad option. Again, it is on that top 10 list for me of Superman titles ever published that I've read, and even looking at the images now, I think I might be due for a long-awaited reread. In fact, I think this is a title that I've never done a review for on this channel, surprisingly. If you'd like to see me cover All-Star Superman sometime in the future, definitely let me know in the comments section. I'll see what I can do. There's honestly so much more I could say about this particular release, but I'll save that for when I can go more into spoiler territory, again possibly in a future review. But yes, this is All-Star Superman. In my mind, it is a must-read DC comic, particularly for fans of the Man of Steel out there. Next up on today's list, we're going to be looking at The Flash, the fastest man alive. To do that, we're going to be looking at The Flash by Mark Waid Omnibus Volume 1. Now, this release is on my mind because as of the recording, they just recently released the Volume 2 Omnibus for this run, so maybe there's never a better time to jump into the world of Waid's Flash. If you don't know, Mark Waid wrote on Flash, predominantly following Wally West as the central Flash character. And this is really the 90s era Flash. I really do like the stories that were contained in this omnibus. When I went ahead and reviewed this title, gosh, maybe a year or two ago now, it was my first time reading Waid's Flash. I've been a longtime fan of Geoff Johns' work on the Flash, also primarily following Wally West, but I always heard that Mark Waid was a just amazing amazing character-defining run, so having this first volume omnibus and getting to just kind of step into that world, I was elated, and honestly, after reading this volume, I can certainly see why this is such a memorable Flash title. Again, focusing on Wally West, we have a younger and more layered kind of characterization for the Flash. I do think Wally is more nuanced and relatable in many ways than someone like Barry Allen. Not to say I don't like Barry's Flash, I'm a fan of him as well. But between this run and Geoff Johns, I'm really just a sucker for Wally West Flash stories. What's great about this omnibus too is that we have a Flash kind of year one sort of story that Mark Waid does as kind of a flashback of how Wally West first got his powers, and then we get to see him just really serving as the Flash. There's also a great story that kicks off this omnibus that has the Golden Age era Flash, Jay Garrick, Barry Allen's Silver Age era Flash, and then kind of this modern Wally West Flash, all in this kind of super special issue. Really a fun start to this run, and then from there we just go into further adventures. This is at a period too where a lot of the story arcs are resolved within 1 to maybe 2 or 3 issues, which I liked as well. We don't have massive, huge story arcs, at least for the beginning portion of this run, but we have a lot of great character-driven stories. This omnibus has a ton of hits in my mind, and he really starts to build more of the lore or mythos around the Flash. In fact, I think Waid's tenure on the book did introduce us to the idea of the Speed Force, which is just common parlance within the Flash universe at this point. I also think it was really fun to see how Mark Waid began to roll in other speedsters. I think that is something really notable about this collection as well. We're introduced to so many other speedsters. Again, it's just fantastic. The art in this collection I thought was really vivid, larger than life, jumped off the page, and yeah, just a really fun 90s work. I always recommend The Flash by Geoff Johns, but I think for this video, I would definitely consider this a must-read DC comic as well. Don't miss out on Mark Waid's Flash, especially now that we have a Volume 2 omnibus release. Okay, next up on my must-read DC list, we're going to be talking about a very modern title. This is Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. This has gotten so much celebration, accolades, and praise, and in my mind, rightly so. I've definitely featured this run on my channel a handful of times, and here we are to do it again. This is another example of a run fresh on my mind because I believe it's slated to release its first omnibus of this run, collecting the first maybe half or third of it, coming out in July, I believe, of 2025. Anyway, it's fresh on my mind. I've been thinking a lot about Nightwing, and this is a fantastic place to start, and honestly, I think an essential Nightwing run. To roll it back, though, for those that don't know who Nightwing is, he is Dick Grayson, Batman's original Robin Boy Wonder. At some point, he took on a mantle all his own in the form of Nightwing. He patrols for his city of Bloodhaven, along with other places like Gotham City. I really like Nightwing. I've always enjoyed Dick Grayson as a character. I love to see his evolution. I think he's a perfect example of letting a character grow up and mature within a comics universe. We don't always see that played out, certainly not as successfully as we do in the case largely of Dick Grayson's Nightwing. And I think this run is really fun because with the art of Bruno Redondo, it is just vivid, beautiful, creative visually, and every image just jumps right off the page. This is a run I could safely recommend to just about anyone, and I love that he makes it so easy for new readers to check it out. This first volume, Leaping into the Light, again, just sets the stage for everything that Tom Taylor will build within this Nightwing universe, but it's a fun, character-driven story with a lot of great actions, again, eye-popping visuals, and it just has a lot to love. It definitely doesn't punish people who don't know much about Nightwing's backstory or cast of characters, but it does lovingly bring you in through flashback or exposition, or sometimes just scenes playing out, filling in all the details or character moments you need to know to really have a great payoff for the character interactions and overall story plot points. If you'd like to see more about my coverage of Tom Taylor's Nightwing, you can certainly check out my review of this particular book, Leaping into the Light. I definitely reviewed that on the channel. I also reviewed some of the subsequent releases in this run as well. I think I did maybe 3 or 4 volumes covering Tom Taylor's Nightwing. You can search those out as well if you'd like to see me talk in further detail about this title. But yeah, I'm excited. I might try to save up to upgrade for the Omnibus edition. Would love to hear in the comments if any of you plan to do so as well. But for right now, this is Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. And hey, if you're enjoying this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing comic book list videos like this, comic book reviews, unboxings, and more. Thank you so much for considering. Now on with the show. Next on this list, a personal favorite comic book run of mine. This is Green Lantern by Geoff Johns. Now, this is among my short list of best comic runs ever of all time. This is the Volume 1 Omnibus of a 3-volume omnibus set, collecting the entire Johns run. That's not including all the tie-ins for Blackest Night or Brightest Day. Obviously, you'll need those omnibuses for that. And then we have the Peter J. Tomasi, Patrick Gleason Green Lantern Corps omnibus set that also has issues of the whole Green Lantern universe around that time. But no, this 3-volume set is the main Johns run, and this volume here is what kicks it all off. I have loved this run for some time. This was really the Green Lantern run I gravitated towards early in my comic reading time. I read some of the Silver Age stuff and then pretty much jumped right into this. I used to have the entire run over a scattering of paperbacks and different sized hardcovers, and I always hoped to upgrade to omnibus someday. I actually sold most of my collection at one point. If you haven't seen my secret origin, there was a point where I was out of comics for a handful of years, didn't think I'd come back, and when I did, I always wanted to pick up this run again. I even found 1 or 2 paperbacks, but I never was able to complete it, so for a long time I just didn't have this run in the collection. But as of recently, I'm happy to say I do. I have this volume 1, and I have subsequent volumes on the way. In fact, I'll probably do a whole video dedicated to this omnibus set, so stay tuned and maybe act surprised when I drop that in coming weeks. But why is this run a must read? It's honestly hard to put into words exactly how great this run is, but I'll give it a shot. I think that this run is a perfect place for new and returning Green Lantern fans. Essentially, Geoff Johns brought Hal Jordan back into the DC universe. He'd been gone for quite some time, and we have early on Green Lantern Rebirth, which is kind of a little mini-series that brought Hal back into the fold as this universe's Green Lantern, or one of them. And I loved that they brought Hal back. I love that they kind of redeemed him, and I loved his ongoing adventures here. Geoff Johns introduced us to the different Lantern Corps. We got Blackest Night, Brightest Day throughout this run, but in this first volume, the pinnacle we have here is probably the Sinestro War Corps. If you've ever been curious about Sinestro, this is honestly one of my favorite story arcs that we get with him. This one and then one toward the end of this run I'm a big fan of. But yeah, this whole run is just fantastic. Like I said, great for new readers, great for returning fans. If you've ever enjoyed Green Lantern, this is such a big character-defining run. Like I said, Geoff Johns added so much to the lore of Green Lantern that it feels like a completely different property by the time he's done, at least in my mind. Like, it honors the roots of this character, but the world and universe seems so much fuller after everything we get. The art throughout this run as well is oftentimes gorgeous to look at. Like I said, just a really big fan here. The characterizations are great, dialogue is quick and well paced, and yeah, just a stunning run. Going through this again, I have just been enjoying every page. That is Green Lantern by Geoff Johns, one of the must-read collections in the DC universe. Okay, and rounding out the list today is a Batman title. I couldn't do a list like this without including a Batman book, and for today we're going to be talking about Batman the Knight by Chip Zdarsky and Carmine Di Giandomenico. Now for me, this has been one of my favorite Batman books I've read in the last maybe 5 to 10 years. We've had some great Batman books roll out, but this was really something special, a real gem. This is one that snuck up on me. If you've seen my review of this book, I had no idea it was even coming out until the collection was already available. And then I swooped on it. I read this thing so fast, and I had such a great time. This is essentially a Batman origin story kind of book, and it really fills in the gap between when Bruce Wayne lost his parents in Crime Alley and when he becomes the Batman. So this is kind of an interstitial material you could read before something like Batman Year One, for example. These are the years, the kind of dark years, when he's coming of age, when he's learning, going around the world, learning all the skills he'll eventually need to become Batman. That's really what we have here, and I cannot believe how well it was done, or how long it's taken to really piece in these key moments from his history. I thought that this was really a missing piece kind of graphic novel, and it was extremely well executed by the creative team. Admittedly, I am a fan of the creators already, but this is something truly next level for me. Again, because it's more of an origin story, I do think it's easy for new readers to pick up and check out, but I think it rewards longer term Batman fans when you already have an idea of who this man will be. When you get to fill in the puzzle pieces of his past, I think it's even more enriching and rewarding, but perhaps that's just me. There's a lot of great throwbacks in this book, referencing other eras of Batman's history. Most notably, there is kind of an Easter egg from the James Tynion the Fourth Batman run, which I thought was a really well executed moment or character. Again, I don't want to go into too many spoilers here, but yeah, really well done overall. I really enjoyed that we have issues that kind of just explore how he honed his craft and skills and physicality to, again, eventually become the Batman. I thought this was just a really good character study for Bruce Wayne, and having all of the artwork from Giandomenico, it's just really stunning. Because he's traveling the world, there's also a really great sense of place and immersion in this work. I love that we get to see art across, the globe. We get to see so many exotic locations, and again, just worked really well. I did speak further on this title in a dedicated review where I go into spoilers and just general thoughts about the whole work. I'll try to link that video if you're interested in watching more thoughts on this book. But yeah, I consider this a must-read. I think it's easy to point to other more origin-ish stories, things like Batman Year One, or I'll throw Long Halloween in there. I might prefer both of those titles, honestly, but I think that this one sometimes gets overlooked because it's so new and contemporary, but I do think it's going to stand shoulder to shoulder with some great Batman works, especially over time, at least in my mind. I think it's an absolute must read, and I would just love to promote it and draw more attention to it because it is just such a fun experience, especially for those interested in Batman. Okay, and once again, we have reached the end of today's list video. This is 5 must-read DC Comics. As I mentioned at the top, there are so many hundreds of books that could have easily fit on this list. Again, I'm not claiming these are the best DC Comics of all time, just 5 that I would consider must-read. Some are really well known, some perhaps a bit lesser so, or not talked about as much, but I hope you've enjoyed my presentation today. With a lot of these titles, I've done fuller reviews. If you'd like to see me speak more extensively on any of the ones I mentioned today, let me know in the comments, and I would love in the comments as well to hear, what do you think about these selections? Have you read any of these titles? What were your thoughts? Or what would you add to a list like this? What are some of your favorite go-to, must-read, must-recommend DC Comics? I'd love to hear all about that in the comments section. As always, thank you for taking this ride with me, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone, and have a good one.